everybody. We are so excited that you are here for the next episode 5 of the Connected Wellness Podcast. I am your host, Rachel Ann. This is our amazing host, Marianne, and we are so passionate about wellness.
Here in this podcast, we talk about the ways that our physical, emotional, and spiritual health is all connected and how we can take better care of our whole selves holistically to just live our best lives. Right. So we're really excited that you're here with us to take this journey. And here for episode 5, we're even more excited to have our very first guest. We have Father Daniel joining us. So let me just tell you a few things about Father Daniel. Father Daniel is one of the abunas, or fathers in Arabic, at my church of St. Mary's Coptic Orthodox Church here in Pittsburgh. He's been a priest for almost 5 years. And he's very well suited to talk about what we wanted to focus on today, which is kind of how we deal with our mental health and our spiritual health, and kind of the, connection between them, and how we can take care of each and the different resources. So not only has he gone to seminary, but he has a master's degree in theology, but also in family therapy. So those two unique perspectives, I think, are going to really help us understand how we can take care of ourselves here in the best way possible. So welcome, Abuna.
Welcome. And I'm so excited being with you guys. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you for giving me a chance to talk to your great audience. It's an amazing thing to talk about wellness, especially from the perspective of being connected. So these two words actually is what the church is about. My life goal is to work on the wellness of everyone, mentally, physically, and definitely the ultimate goal is spiritual, and that can happen through connection. So you guys have a great name, Connected Wellness. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this great service.
So, well, again, we're really happy to have you. And before we jump into this really important topic, we don't want to forget about our wellness wins. So we always start our episode because we want to make sure that we're kind of congratulating ourselves for taking a little bit of an effort, to do sometimes what feels like very small things that have a big impact on our, well-being. So just because you're new, Abuna, we won't make you go first. So Rachel, Anne, do you want to start with your wellness win?
Absolutely. I would be very happy to share mine. So my wellness win was actually earlier today. And what was happening was I connected with a fellow entrepreneur in a very random way. She actually is a client for another business that I have. And she was like, hey, I'm really interested in transitioning into a different career that's very similar to your industry. Can we chat and can we meet up? And I was like, oh my gosh, absolutely. I'd be so happy to. And it was a really, really great conversation. I actually didn't want it to end. I was like, let's order more coffee. Let's get more donuts. This is such a great time. And if you're somebody who's an entrepreneur, or you're somebody who doesn't have a traditional job where you have colleagues around you, you know how lonely it can get sometimes. And so I was really appreciative, and I was like, wow, God, thank you so much that somebody had the courage to ask to meet up and to hang out and to share information and also get some support too, because it was a really, really fruitful conversation. And we actually are planning to do this regularly. It's called co-working for us millennials. We love the term co-working, and I'm really looking forward to it. And it just made me feel like, I was like, wow, I love what I do. I love being able to connect with people. It was great to get outside of the house. And I found myself feeling fulfilled in a type of way that I didn't really know that I was going to be filled. But I really appreciated it. So that was my wellness win for this week.
Nice. Sounds like some social connection, right? Yeah, which is very important. That's great.
Yeah. Awesome. How about you?
Okay, I'll go next. We'll save Abuna for last. So, okay, I drive to work every day because I live in the suburbs, not like you, city person, right? So sometimes when you're driving to work, I don't know if anyone can relate. You just don't feel like it, right? You just don't feel like, you're ready for this day, or maybe the day before was really busy. So I was having one of those mornings. So I have a Amazon Alexa in the car. Shout out to Chris for having way too much technology in my life, right? So I have one of those in my car. And so I just asked her, hey, Alexa, what's the Bible verse of the day? And did you know that was one of the skills? So she'll just like give you a different verse every day. Yeah. So she just tells me a verse. And then I was like, oh, how nice. And it lets me like sit and meditate on that verse. And, just that tiny shift, instead of me dreading the day ahead and thinking, I just don't want to. I don't want to. Instead, I had a piece of God's word that I could focus on. So I've been doing that actually every time I get in the car now. Before I do music, before I listen to the news, whatever, I say, Alexa, what's the verse of the day? And yeah, I just think that small little shift of filling my mind with something good, God's word, has been pretty impactful.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a great way to like start your drive or even start your day,
Yeah.
especially before things like reading and listening to the news, which can be very stressful.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, those are our wins. Abuna, what about you?
Well, I guess that's my turn. It's actually interesting that it's amazing that today in the morning I just had something, a parent meeting about my younger son, and you know how parent meetings are. We should keep talking about things that has to do with like what should be done, what have been done, and evaluation, and all these things. And out of nowhere, the discussion just went through a parenting techniques and things like that, and how we can build this, like raise our kids. And here come me out of nowhere preaching about faith and how can transition happen in our life when at the beginning we just introduce all concepts to our kids, including faith, as an imitation thing. And all of a sudden they grow up, and while they're maturing, developing, they start to experience things their own way. And when we clicked on this idea, I start to talk about how this is the same thing that applies to our relationship with God, where you just get it in imitation phase when you're young. And with time, you start to develop this experience, and you know who God is in your life, not only about everyone there outside, and how that can end up with a great experience that make you feel that you're following God with no conditions, obeying God in everything in your life without even considering if what's happening makes sense or you're really accepting it or no. It's just like you go there. And I found myself in 10 minutes, just meditation sort of message in the middle of teachers and everyone was listening. And I felt that really made my day. And everyone looked at it and was like, thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
So it was actually an amazing experience. It made me feel like as a witness, and at the same time, and make everyone very excited about what does it really mean.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. A different setting than you would never think, really, to be able to share a message like that. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
I love that.
Thank you for sharing that. So I think that tells us like when the Holy Spirit wants to say something through you, like it doesn't matter if it makes sense or not really, in the moment, like it's just, it's got to come out. Yeah.
Yes.
We got to be obedient, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, great job, guys. High five for our wellness wins.
Yay.
So, okay, let's get into this topic because I don't know about you, but I mean, I need to hear whatever you're going to say more than probably anybody. But I think there's a lot of people that, need to understand that there is a place for us to focus on our relationship with God. Of course, that's the number one thing. We never want to neglect that. But there is a time that maybe we need some other resources. We need some other help. And sometimes it's hard to know when is the time, to look elsewhere, to go see a doctor, to go see a therapist, to do something other than, pray about whatever we're feeling. So I hope you have something to share with us. I will be listening very carefully, as I'm sure many other people will be. So what do you think about it?
Actually, an amazing topic to talk about. And that's just summarize everything that we should do in life. Sit down, think, and consider choices in life. And when you guys were reaching me about this topic, there is always a common theme that takes me back to the original image that God created in us. This is like the role model for humanity, the way that God created human. When he created Adam, it says in the book of Genesis that he created it in his image and likeness.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've been always actually fan of reading about, understanding what does this mean in the writing of the early church fathers and throughout all the contemplations out there about what does it mean to be in the image of God. So part of this image is the model that God created in when he took dust and just breathed in it. There are two ways to see humans. There is what's called the two ways, the bipartite, the two models, which is physical and spiritual, earthly and heavenly. What's from God, the breath, what's from the earth, which is dust. And this challenging thing that we always keep between what's heavenly, what's earthly, what's called the dual, form of nature of humans, where body is mortal, just visible, it's like sensory, and the spirit is just invisible and immortal and mental. But in between those two big parts, there's what's called the tripartite form, the three parts form, in which the soul lies in between. And the soul is it's more of a combination of the heart, as the Bible sometimes calls it, the mind, as sometimes also the Bible calls it. It's in a Greek word that's called the nous. The nous is how we think, how we feel. So having these two, flesh and spirit, there's something in between. I always refer to the prayer that St. Paul said in the 1 Thessalonians 5:23, when he says, may God of peace himself sanctify you wholly. And this is the word that you said when you started, holy. And may your spirit, soul, and body be kept sound and blameless. This is why we're here today. So we can pray and work on how we can make our soul sound and blameless, and how we can help this soul to be in a better place, how we can help it when we can help it, and we can refer to someone who really can help when we can. And our goal is to achieve this wellness in God, because he is the source of the initial image, the original one, and he is also the one, when he saw us messing up, losing, and distorting this image, coming, taking this exact flesh with these three parts of it, flesh, soul, and spirit. This is what we believe, that Christ took this full human nature so he can give us a model. To summarize, he gave us the possibility of being perfect in him. But every day we suffer. Every day we have things going here and there. And the question that we are now asking is how we can get help when we need help, and what really we can offer, and what we have to be able to get help when it's really necessary.
That was beautiful. I love that. I touched my neck because I was just imagining how God created us with purpose and on purpose, in his image, in his likeness. Like he must really love us if that is what he's going to do. And the idea of the soul being a connection in that way, it's just a beautiful harmony. I love that. I love how you broke that down. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, this is our job, and maybe we can elaborate more about what does this job look like.
Yeah, so when you mentioned the three parts of Una, that's something we've been talking about since day one, that so many times I think growing up in the church, and this is nobody's fault, but we get the sense that the most important thing, or the only important thing, is our spiritual life, right? That nothing else matters, and even maybe to the detriment of our physical health or our mental health. And but I think we know that that's not true, because God created all three parts again in his image, and I think that he loves us enough to want us to take care of ourselves fully and wholly, like you said, WHOLLY, holy. So yeah, so let's get down to kind of again, the example of, I am an anxious person. I'll be very honest with you. I have a lot of anxious thoughts. I worry way too much. I think more than average. I know many people have more anxiety in the last few years, but I really do want to know at what point should I, and I keep praying, of course, about it. We talked about this last week. Praying is always the right answer, right? When we face anything, we should pray about it. But at what point do I say, okay, I need to do something more?
Okay, answering your question, I just see two big parts here. The first question is, what we really need, how can we really help when we get encountered with any situation like that? When we feel that there is a problem out there, how we can help each other. Then the other question is to put the boundaries between what we're able to do and what we're not. And in between, I want to tell you that love is there anyway. When I find my son sick, I love him to the end. I love him even more than the doctor that I'm going to take him to. But I wouldn't trust myself to treat him, right? I'll take him to a doctor. Even that this doctor is not going to love him more than me. So when we decide to refer someone or ask him to get help, that doesn't mean that we're not really helping him much. No, that might be the greatest help to do is to refer him somewhere. So that very first concept that we have to offer, that feeling and knowing that there is more than what we can offer is the greatest love that I can do to anyone around me. But again, like I said, there is a first question. What's our job to do in general daily things? And what is the signs and symptoms and the parameter that we feel there that we have to refer? Let's choose which one you want to start with first. Then we can cover it in detail.
I mean, I think we could go with the first. So what should we do?
Okay.
On a regular basis.
All right. When we kind of read about the therapy and what's really can anyone help with, away from the professional part, there are always three words that we have to ask ourselves when we or anyone around us need help. And please memorize these three words. Who is this participant that we're trying to help? Either it's me or anyone around me. Participant. Who is he? Number two, what is the process that we can help with? Number three, actually, what is the goal that we want to take him to? Who is he, the participant? What is the process? And what is the goal? So whenever we have any situation, we or anyone else around us, we have to first ask ourselves, what's going on? What kind of problem do we have here? And when we feel that the problem is natural, inevitable, someone is getting old, getting into a phase in life when depression is part of his life. Well, that's inevitable. That's something that all senior people go through. Okay. Let's see how we can help. We get even here knowledge about how we can help someone. That's inevitable. But there are other things that are preventable. Abuse, physical needs, hunger. All these things are things that can be prevented, right? They are preventable. So what kind of effort can I put there to prevent these things to happen? So the participant, who is he? And when I approach someone who's in need and help, I love the model that Christ gave when he was talking about the good shepherd. What did he say? He says that he knows his sheep and calls them by their names, right? So you have to know who's this person by name. You have to connect to him by name. This is the first part, the participant. The second one is a process. I want to say something that I really love to share with you. Our job is not to fix people, not even to fix ourselves. We can't do that. Again, I'm coming from a medical background, so I'll keep sharing some medical terminology. When someone comes to me with a broken bone and goes to a bone doctor, does the doctor sit down and heal the bone for him? He does not. What does he do? He just put it in a cast, right? And the healing process happens in a physiological, normal way. This is our rule for everyone, is to put the support system for him. Then God is the healing power out there. We don't heal people. We can't even heal ourselves. So even when you try to help, being compassionate, believe it or not, people don't remember what you tell them in these hard days. They don't. Oh, would they remember that you were there for them as a cast or as a band-aid, right? You put in a wound and it heals. So it is what we call synergy. It's a fellowship between us and God, between God, who really heals, who really helps, and our role there is just to be there, for people, to show them the love of God to them. This is what I wanted to cover when I talk about the process. Process is a synergy. The process is being there for people, compassionate and help. And the goal is to take them back to Him. And here will come the second question. Okay, I'm loving, I'm caring, I'm giving. Here comes a question. What if it's beyond my capability? Where can I sit down and say, I can't do that. I have to go there and refer to someone else. And here I'll come to Marianne's question about how would I know that I really need help? Is the anxious mood that I have today is generalized anxiety disorder, as they call it in psychiatry, GAD, or it's just an anxious day, or it's just like a feeling that I have? Is a bad mood that I have in the morning, it's just a bad day, a bad feeling, or it's a major depression syndrome that I have to go through? I think this is the core discussion that we have today. And in order to make the answer of this question very easy, I want you again to count the 3 on your fingers. I always give trees, so you don't forget. The 3 things that you have to ask yourself in every single feeling you have, or anyone around you have. 3 questions. First, if this feeling is a reaction to something, or it just comes out of nowhere. I'll say it very quick, then I will give examples. The second thing, does this feeling has a specific limitation in time? Is it time limited, or it's been there for a while? And the third question, does this feeling impair my life, or I'm still able to survive? Let me give you examples very quick. The first point, a reaction. You have a big interview today, and you're meeting, some big CEO in a big company where you have to make a decision about, having, this job or not being accepted. You have a big exam that will really make a big difference in your, school. Is it normal to be anxious? Of course. This is a reactive thing. If you're not going to be reactive with being anxious, how would you be productive? How would you work harder the night before? How would you really care about it? That's normal. But if you have a normal day, nothing really different, and you woke up with really these anxious feelings, and you ask yourself, what's going on? I don't know. I'm just anxious. So the first thing, is it react or no? The second question is, how long you've been there? When I ask someone how long you've been feeling anxious, and he tells me, it's just, a couple of days. You never know. But if someone told me I've been like that in 2 years, that's not normal. That's not normal. You have to sit down here, or you have to sit down with those who really go through this and tell them it's time that we seek help. The third factor, as I said, how does this really impair my daily life? Does this depression preventing me from going to work? Or I just Marianne was just telling about her win thing, that she is just enjoying the ride. She doesn't enjoy it, and she doesn't feel like this is really the best day. And she easily find a solution for it, right? But you think if it's really an anxiety, you just simply find a verse and will help? You'll just stand up and pray and you will feel so much better?
Yeah.
Of course not.
Yeah.
And here, I think there's a teaching process that we have to tell people. I'll take an example of what depression looks like. When you read, go ahead, Google, what are the signs and symptoms of major depression, for example? When you look at them, depression, it's a syndrome. It's not just feel bad. You will find, and I can, again, medical background will jump here, people who have low self-esteem, loss of appetite, lack of sleep, lack of energy, and sometimes even to have thoughts of suicide. That's not regular low mood. That's a big issue. And once this happens, there's a red flag that has to be there. Me or anyone around a person who's going through that has to seek help.
Yeah. So I feel like you're describing a lot straight out of the DSM, right? I took psych classes too in college, and I do remember that. And the impaired functioning was the biggest one that I remember. That is huge. But you said something interesting. You said, are you surviving? Right. And I know that's an important question, but okay, maybe yes, I'm surviving, but I want to do more than survive, right? That's what
Mhm.
we're talking about here in this podcast in general. Like, we want to live good lives. Jesus said, I came to give you abundant life, right? Here.
Yeah.
So I not only want to survive, yeah, sure, maybe I'm surviving. I think a lot of us are at that stage where we get through our days, we do what we need to do, we take care of our families, we go to work, but like, it feels like,
Mhm.
it feels like
Yeah.
it's taking everything I have to get through the day. So yeah, I mean, can we take that one step further? Like, am I just surviving? Because I don't think that's good enough. I
Oh,
don't know about
sure.
you.
I relate that to a spiritual concept, and I will apply it to the mental or psychological problem that you're saying. Whenever we read about Christ and how he deals with people, you see him how he really was able to dissociate that connection between a sinner and a sin.
Mm,
The labeling process that we do to ourselves and to people around us. Once you have a feeling, you're labeled as anxious. If you have a feeling of anxiety, you're labeled as an anxiety patient. If you have low mood, you label yourself as being depressed or label people around you of being that. And here jumps the spiritual part of it. Those who know that they are children of God, those who know that there's God there who really can help them to, like you said, give him more than just surviving, know that they cannot label themselves only with their actions. And it took to my mind always the story of the prodigal son. And let me share this idea with you because I read it in a couple of contexts here. It's when this prodigal son was away and he was sitting with himself rehearsing what he's going to say when he go back. He told himself, I'll go and tell my father that I'm no longer worthy of being your son, but make me like you're one of your hired servants. When you read in Luke 15, when he came back and he tried to say these words to his father stopped him right before this word. He would not accept from him to label himself as a servant. He's like, you might be messing up, you might be away, you might be prodigal, but you're not a servant. You're still my son. So how can we apply this and relate to our mental health? How we can put this concept of if I have a mental problem, I should not just label myself of it. I should go out there and see how much God gave me, how much other things that I'm really successful in, how much things that I like you said, how much I was able to survive. The fact that I'm able to be at my workplace today is a great grace that God gave me and a great achievement that I did also, and how people helped me to be in this place. And that's what the whole podcast, like you guys said, the positive attitude of being, you know, sharing what we have. We live in a community that's just thirsty for more. We're just asking for more. We never sit down to consider and count our blessings and thank God for what he gave us. Do you have a bad mood? How about the love that you have to give? How about the achievement that you have to yourself, to your family, to the community, and everyone around you? How we can turn this well-being, good well-being, from not only from ourselves, but also if it can be come from outside. How that the service, the love, the help that I offer to people can make me have a better day. Not only, like you said, to move on or survive, but really to accept that as a great gift and enjoy it throughout my day.
mm-hmm.
I love that. I think what something that's sticking with me that you said, Abuna, is that we tend to put that label on ourselves. And for things like if anybody has dealt with an anxiety disorder or depression is something that I struggle with from time to time. Those are very heavy things. And it can be easy to completely label. I'll speak about just about myself. It can be easy for me to label myself as that because it's so heavy. It's impacting my physical body. I feel very heavy and just it's difficult to like move around and do stuff. It's impacting my mind. My mind feels really heavy and just tired and slow. My emotions don't feel positive at all. They feel tired, sad, and hopeless. And so it makes sense why we kind of wear that, especially when we receive a diagnosis. It's like, oh, there's a name for this. There's a name for the thing that I'm experiencing. And so it's good that we have a name for it, but it can be tempting to wear that so strongly because it's so heavy. And I think that's one of the reasons why community, something that we spoke about in a few of our episodes, and Abuna, you shaking your head. So I have a hunch that's something you're probably going to talk about. And that's why community is so important. One of the reasons why it's so important. There's been times where I can't pray for myself. So I text my best friend. I'm like, hey, girl, can you be praying for me? I'm just having a depressive day right now, and it's hard for me to get out of it. And her prayers are what has gotten me through that day and what has alleviated that depressive episode. Last episode, I think we Marianne was talking about how God answers prayers through many different ways. And one of them is like, oh, your friend is praying for you? Absolutely. I can come and intervene in your thoughts and in your feelings. I can give you the motivation to seek support and do all of the things. So it's a heavy feeling, which is why I think that one of the reasons why we kind of wear it a lot. And we have to have the oomph to be like, okay, I can't get out of the heaviness of it, but I need to reach out to somebody who can pray and reach out to a mental health practitioner who can be like, all right, these are some coping mechanisms we're going to use in this moment. Where are you at now? What can we do about it? So I really love that you highlighted that very real reality that I don't think people realize when you have a mental health or even a physical health diagnosis, there's a heaviness to it, you know?
Yeah. When you said that, actually, it just clicked into my mind, the positive part of this fellowship and help and compassion that we get from others, and the negative part of it. Let me share that a little bit with you. The
Talk
positive
about
part
it.
to start with is definitely how much really we need help from out there. And like I said earlier, it doesn't have to have specific help to give. Being there for someone, like you said, answering a text message by a prayer, saying, hey, you know what, I'm praying for you. I'm really, God is there for you. Giving more of a compassion and support, like I said earlier, to help the healing process is definitely something needed. And sometimes all what we need is just active listening. Just someone sit down and shake his head and says, aha, I hear you. I know what you're going through. Maybe I've been through that before. And I experienced that, like I said earlier, how to get the experience of the presence of God in our life to help us during these moments. But, and here I have to share the negative part of it. Sometimes people would look at us and give us more of a labeling, a stigma of, what are you talking about? You want to go and see a counselor or a therapist? Why would you do that? We already pray, we go to church, and that's more than enough, right? Isn't that what we sometimes hear? And that's actually sad. And there's a third layer of that, of judgments. When some people look at someone and says, how bad is that? What did you do to end up at this place? This is another aspect of the negative stigma that sometimes we have with seeking help. Look, let me tell you that out straight. And that's what I tell everyone in the church. And this is not my quote. This is like the early church view about the church. Church as a community is a hospital for sickness, not a place of righteousness. But everyone in a church is in need of help, regardless what kind of help with that. Spiritual help, we have guidance, we have confession, we have tools of spiritual guidance, but physical help, we all need help. We go to get physical help. That these two areas are very clear. But once it comes to the mental health, people are still iffy about, should we really do that or not? And here we have to say it out loud. If you need help, according to the standards that we set, you don't think twice. And that's sometimes I feel in a confession setting, and I sit with someone and he start talking about things. I'm like, I smell it. No, I can't just let you go home. I can't just say, okay, you know what, I'll pray for you. That's something that you need to get help. And now, even like with my family therapy background, when I sit down with families and like doing visitation, talking with people in spiritual talk, and I see sometimes conflict, daily conflicts. Who doesn't have argument with his wife or his husband? Normal. But sometimes you sit down there and like, no, guys, you have to see someone. So again, that needs an eye, a pair of eyes to catch it. It needs education, it needs compassion, it needs closeness. And the last question, how would you guide someone for help if you haven't proven that you really love him? The background that will take anyone this advice from you is his 100% confidence that you really love him. You're not there to judge him or tell him what to do. This is very crucial. And here I will conclude also with something here, that even after you refer him, that doesn't stop your process. You still have a lot of work to do. Not that you referred him, not that I referred someone to a psychiatrist or a therapist, that I did my job and I wash my hands and I have nothing else to do. Of course not. Of course not.
Wow. Yeah. Abuna, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know if you know, like, I don't think it's normal for most of us to hear what you're saying, you know, from someone in your position to say, like, yes, 100%, if you need to see a therapist, see a therapist. So I think in the last few years, it's gotten a lot better. But I mean, I'm sure, Abuna, you and I are almost the same age. Like when we were young, it was not normal. Like nobody would ever admit that they were going to see a therapist or something like that, because there was such a stigma. I mean, the stigma still remains, but I think it's much better than it used to be. But to hear you say that it's okay to get whatever help you need, you know, I think is really powerful. And I think that a lot of people are going to find that really comforting. I don't know if you've gotten pushback from anyone or.
No, absolutely not. And I think maybe, okay, again, the medical background will jump here. We have a golden rule in medicine say that the eye cannot see what the mind does not know. So when you know what is a mental illness, when you know what's the difference between spiritual problem, being demon possessed, having psychological problem, when you do the differentiation and you have the pair of eyes that know the difference, you will just go there and spontaneously say that. This is my first comment. Second comment about this development, I don't think that this is a development. It just may be that there is a stereotype that's out there and out loud. But from day one, and I'm telling you, that's not an invention in the 20th century. When you even read like early writing in the church, and you see the effect that happened to the soul due to the fall, what's called the decay. There is a process of decay. Origen, for example, said something, how that the soul that I was talking about in between this flesh and spirits have to become spiritual, you know, by the guidance of the Holy Spirit to behave. And in order for this soul to be really attracted to the Holy Spirit, we have to give her the right guidance. Maybe there was no professional people, maybe those spiritual figures were doing this mental health. A lot of those principles are out there in the church already. Active listening. I was part of my study when we were doing family therapy. They were teaching us to stop responding. Don't say anything. Don't tell people what to do. They're not here to listen what they should do. All what they need to do is to steer their life to what they know, to open their eyes to what's really the right thing to do. So I think the church have been already doing that, but maybe it wasn't said in an academic or professional language that you guys are hearing today. It is already there that we help people, but again, how we can help them. If I have to soak myself in the spiritual guidance, I believe in being very specialized. I have to focus in my spiritual guidance and help as a father of compassion, as a spiritual guiding to my children. So if I felt that there's an area where I'm not going to give them the best service whatsoever, I have to refer them. And don't forget that happened even to the outside medicine. Back in the day, there was no specialist in surgery, no specialist in nephrology, no specialist in bone. A doctor is just a doctor. But nowadays, we have this era of speciality, right? So we're also applying the same rule. If someone needs a specialized service with a higher quality and their service is out there, why not to refer him?
Yeah.
I love that. Marian, I just thought of a question, but I want to check if we have time. Do you have time for one question?
I'd say we have time for a quick question and then we can do takeaways. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Abuna, very quickly, I would love to hear your thoughts about, for people who are trying to decide if they need to speak to their priest, their pastor, their Abuna, or if they need to speak to a therapist, a psychologist, psychiatrist. What are the situations where they should go seek their pastor or their priest as opposed to a therapist?
Okay, let me ask you a question. You know, I have 2 kids. When these 2 first kids starts to complain about cold, where is the first person that they're gonna go to?
You.
Am I a doctor? No. They come to me and says, Dad, I don't feel well. Dad, I'm sneezing. Dad, I feel like, I can't go to school, right? So me being a spiritual father out there, someone who really are always there for my children, would be the first person to go. Say, Dad, spiritual, Abuna, like Marianne called me, I don't feel well. And here, out of the passion of being a father, I'll sit down, talk, and dig deeper in this soul and see what's going on in there. And once you do that, you know exactly what you can help with and what you cannot. You know exactly the area that you will stop there and say, hey, not that I'm referring you. No, I will need someone else to help you with me. Like I said, I'm not going to wash my hand and let go. I'll still be there. So I think answering your question, I don't see any contradiction between both. Because even the family at this situation still need to help. We're even looking for everyone to help with this person. So the family has a role to play. Abuna has a place to go. The church community has something to do. The workplace, the friends, everyone has to help, right? And here I'll answer you and says, yes, I will have to be there, but at the same time, I know what I should also refer and when and where. And this is another area that we all have to be knowledgeable about. When someone comes to me and asks, I have to have resources, resources that I can trust and I can share. And this is maybe also something that we need to work on. Always to have, and I have to always to have less of addiction. Where should I refer? Family issues, where should I refer? Mental problem, where should I refer? And so on and so forth. We have to have our own resources.
I appreciate that. It sounds like you have the self-awareness to know as a priest how you can support, and then where that endpoint is. It's like, well, we've reached the end of mine, so I'm going to need another person to join your support team here, and it could look like an addiction counselor or something like that. So thank you for breaking that down.
And not even an endpoint too, like, Abuna, you said, you'll never stop loving your son, right? Just because you send him to the doctor, and you're gonna, pray that the doctor does his best work, right? Pray for the healing, pray for the medicine. And I think it's the same for all of us. So we didn't do this intentionally, but Abuna, you don't even know our other topics, but you literally brought all of our episodes together in one.
Yeah.
Like, we talked about how to support one another. We talked about active listening, and we talked about how you don't have to solve each other's problems. You just need to, make sure the person knows that you love them and you're there for them. We talked last time about stigma, right? And how to deal with the fact that you might be judged or feel shame, because of something. And we talked about how education is one of the ways to overcome stigma. So I think all of that, comes back around here. And I think this has been really, really helpful. I'll just say one thing that I'm really taking away that I'm not going to forget from what you said, that idea. And I know you love to talk about synergy. And the more you talk about it, the more I understand why you love to talk about it, because it is such a powerful idea that I can't heal myself. The therapist can't heal me. The psychiatrist can't heal me. Abuna can't heal. Like, nobody can heal me except God, right? But I need to work with God using those resources that I have, right? Whatever possible resources I have, especially if we compare it to a physical ailment, right? Like, Chris just had sinusitis, right? He's not going to just pray, God, take away my sinusitis, right? He's going to get that antibiotic, right? That Z-Pack. And between God and the medicine, right, he was healed. Like, we need this idea of working together. And I think that's really so important.
Okay. Sorry for interrupting you, but you know that I always give homework, and every single time I give a sermon, it's just like, it's very well known.
Yeah.
So how about, because you repeated this word, work. How about we go there and do some homework and search for some verses? How about we read St. Paul says, work out your salvation in fear and trembling? How about we read St. Paul, even in service, that he says that we are co-worker with him? How about we have this synergy seen in the Bible when we see divine grace, healing, helping, providing us eternal life, but at the same time, we're not going to inherit this eternal life and integrity and health and wellness lying on our beds. We have to stand up, and like the Bible says, we got to be men. We have to man up there, and we have to be also for others and support each other. And that's maybe another win that I can also share with you. Every single time I sit with someone weak, sick, or in a bad place, and I see how much God is just like giving help through me, and I see how much God can use me to help people, I never feel that I do anything. I just feel myself as a tool in God's hand to help people. And that's how also we know our value in our life. The more we have higher value in ministry and helping and service and giving, the more we get more to ourselves and be filled.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, that was incredible, Abuna. Thank you so much, Marianne, and for inviting Abuna to come. She was like, I think I have a really good idea for our first guest. And I was like, I can see why you chose that. Abuna, for people who are listening, is there a way that they can connect with you or chat with you if they have something that they want to share or ask you about?
Sure thing. The easiest way to go to your email, put in one word, full word, fatherdanielpittsburg @gmail. Just Father, full word, Daniel, full word, Pittsburgh, just one word, fatherdanielpittsburg @gmail.com. Email me. Might take a couple of hours, might take a couple of days, might take a couple of weeks. I don't know, but rest assured, I'll get back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll make sure to include it in the show notes. So you'll see that link right there. And so Abuna, we are so grateful that you came. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your kindness. I feel your kind heart just coming through the screen. And I think that's very refreshing for a lot of people to see that in our priests and in our spiritual leaders. As always, if you ever want to get connected with Marianne or I, you can email us. We're at connectedwellnesspodcast@gmail.com. Also will be down below. I'm on Instagram, Real with Rachel Ann. She's on Instagram, Wabasaba. Also will be connected down below. And our Instagram, Connected Wellness Podcast, will be down below. But thank you so much for being here, Abuna. And thank you so much to everybody who has been tuning in. We really hope that this has been an episode that you got to enjoy and hear a different perspective, a different voice, an academic, medical, seminary background. And so we really hope that you enjoyed it. Marianne, anything that I'm forgetting?
No, that's it. Thank you so much, Abuna, for being here. We may have to have you back. I feel like you have a lot more good things to say. Yeah. And thanks everybody for listening. We want to hear from you. What did you think? Please send in your comments, right? Post your comments, and thanks for being here. So we'll see you next time. Be well.
All righty. Be well, everybody. We'll see you next time.